Good day, I'm Dr. T and welcome to my office. So today I'm reviewing the video game Kingdoms Reborn. And in this one, it's basically a lot like the Anno series. So if you've played Anno, this is going to be very familiar to you. So you start out, you get a city center, or you get to place your city center on a world map, and you're trying to trade, interact with other cities, build up your economy, and progress through time. And in this case, we've got a fairly significant tech tree going from, I guess, Dark Age all the way through Industrial. And the tooltips do suggest, and I should point out, this is an early access game, so tooltips do suggest that there will be future ages potentially. Once again, not entirely sure. I haven't read anything directly from the developers on that, but once you hit Industrial Age, if you look at your town, and I believe there is a tooltip at some point when you upgrade your town hall saying, hey, you can upgrade it more in the next age, which, at this point there isn't a next age. I'm in the Industrial Age. But yeah, so the general idea is you're extracting resources from the land, whether it be wood or farming various crops, etc. You're refining those into goods, or maybe go from a raw resource to a refined resource to a good. You're supplying your civilization's needs. You have various goods, and there's a lot of them, from materials to food to luxury items. As you increase your luxury items, the citizens' houses progress. They give you more taxes, and you advance in rank. You also get more science points to move through the tech tree. So once again, has a bit of kind of that Anno feel. You're building up your civilization, and your people are going to want stuff, which your job is to get it for them. So things are pretty good. So you got your basic ideas. Now, looking at this, kind of my thoughts. For starters, the game really plays in a couple of different parts. You'll notice there's the tech tree. There's also the upgrade tree, which is basically a second tech tree, which you'll notice I haven't put nearly as much emphasis into it, which I probably should have been, but So these use the same science points. You can upgrade your tech tree or your upgrade tree, not both at the same time. And then you've got a series of different things to go through. Some of them are incredibly valuable, like your wheat seeds. These are almost game-breaking. You basically have to get those wheat seeds in pretty early, because wheat's going to be one of your key crops, which of course makes perfect sense. That is, your grains are your kind of staple crop for most of human history. I would like to have seen a couple other grains being get other crops. Now, this is one of my complaints with it. You've got cabbage. I have no idea why you would grow cabbage, truth be told. There's no real advantage to it. It's not like, what was the game? Banished, where your people had to have a balanced diet. So you'd need to grow grains, but you'd also need to grow vegetables, and you need to get meats, etc. Food just appears to be food here. So I don't know why there's a bunch of different types of food. This is early access. Once again, I think they're going to be adding a lot into this, or at least they plan on adding a lot into this. So once again, there's a lot going on that's like, I don't know what they're doing with this. But yeah, so you've got, cabbage seeds, pumpkin seeds, blueberry seeds. I have no idea why you would want these, truth be told. Yeah, so this is one of those interesting parts. A lot of loose ends are in this one. Now, I should point out on this one, when you're upgrade trees, there are certain things in the upgrade tree that I really don't understand why they're there. The influence points, this is basically your military, allows you to build up your ability to attack and interact in a less than friendly manner with your neighboring civilizations, as well as defend yourself from them. But this not being quite so fleshed out yet, the AI for the computer players is so basic that you don't interact with them. So this whole series is mildly interesting. Conquer Province allows you to acquire more land without the use of gold. But otherwise, like the fort, you never get attacked. I don't quite understand what's going there. So you've got a lot of options that, once again, I don't quite understand the point of them going through with this one. which once again could just be that this is early access and there's a lot coming on here. Now, I do need to point out two things. One, the influence points really to me feels like it should not be in the upgrade tier. This needs to be in the normal tech tree because it's a fairly major chain of progression, because it unlocks a major, once you hit Conquer Province, a major gameplay element. So I would not put it in the upgrades tree, because it doesn't fit with things like forest technology, where you get a small boost to wood cutting yield per level, or quarry improvement, etc. Maybe I'd put the wheat seeds, but honestly, I would put the seeds in with the tech tree. I would put most of this in with the tech tree. The fact that there's two tech trees, honestly, is just weird to me. Not my first choice. I see where they're going with it, and some of these make a lot of sense to put in those separate tree. So I get that. But certain things need to move. Now, the next thing that really, really needs to move is the trading company. This thing is a game changer, and this game really has a few kind of acts in it as you progress, and the game completely changes, which is, to me, kind of trippy. I kind of like it. The trading company, once you unlock this, after a little while, this changes the game completely. So let's start out at the beginnings, and you'll notice over here I have a series of cards. So the way you build buildings, apart from a few kind of stock like houses, etc., is you have to draw a card. So you get a series of cards, you can pay, spend money on these cards, you can cycle through a couple of draw decks, but at a certain point you have to pay to cycle again. Kind of get the general deal. A little bit later on, you'll be able to draw wild cards, which once you have the wild card, you can literally just pick your thing. Costs a little bit more money because you have to buy the wild card. Then you have to buy the card you wanted to, in the first place, get. So you pay a little bit extra, but not by much. And by this point in the game, you're probably going to have a fair amount of cash, because the cash starts out as this very limiting feature. And you really have to worry about your cash flow. But once you start progressing through the game, all of a sudden your cash flow just gets ridiculous. So you start out with the game, you start out making sure people have got enough food, your food tier becomes critical, you're really monitoring this. I don't know why I have dropped, it bounces up and down a lot. I think that's because of the fields and seasons. But you're really worried about food, you don't want your people to starve to death, otherwise, you know, it can be game over. That makes sense, I'm totally cool with that. So the first part of the game when you're in the Dark Ages, and maybe this is kind of a historical input as what's taking place for societies. So this could be a lot of commentary of how the gameplay is changing. But the card thing, you're worried about spending too much money. You're worried about building too fast because you only have so many laborers. And so your people who aren't employed are your laborers. You've got builders. If you deplete your laborers down to zero, bad things happen. You don't gather the resources you need to. Buildings don't get unloaded. So you don't want to build too fast. It's a great way of just sinking yourself early game. Now, later on in the game, there's a button where you can spend gold to build it instantly. And you switch slowly as gold becomes less and less of a valuable resource, and it just becomes, I've got so much of this stuff I don't know what to do with. Then you never use builders. You just build it instantly. You don't use the resources, etc. But anyway, so you build the buildings, and then once they're built, you can do a series of upgrades using various resources that will upgrade the quality of your facility and the diversity of cards. Okay, so early gameplay, that's kind of what you're doing. You're really focusing very small building your community. As I mentioned, that trading post becomes a game changer. Now, I think my first set of trading posts were down in this area. And what you can do with these is you can take a resource and tell it to import or export it and tell a target. It's like, if it drops below this quantity, import this good, and it tells you the price. Now, that price doesn't change. I wish it would. I wish this was some dynamics going on. But once again, there's really no interplay with the other players. So that would make life a lot more interesting, I think. So anyways, if that goes below a certain point, import this automatically. If it goes, or export if it's, you have more than your target. that really changes things. Now, you can do this yourself. You can do this manually. In the beginning of the game, what you want to do fairly early is get yourself either a port like I have here or a trading post, which I don't think I have because I got a port so early. And with these, you can trade. You can buy and sell whatever you'd like. You've got some limits. There's a fee, etc. Once again, early game gold is everything. So your kind of first goal is get enough food and then get something you can sell for profit. Does not matter what. And just start growing that and start getting a nice cash crop. But once you get the trading post and once you've been good at getting some cash crops, maybe some nice luxuries, then all of a sudden they start bringing in a pretty good amount of money and you start worrying a little bit less about gold, less, to the point where now I really don't care. I've got, what, 1.4 million and I don't know what to do with it. So you have this interesting dichotomy. Starting the game out, you start with very few techs. Once again, you got the tech tree, you can only build certain buildings, and you're upgrading, etc. And it makes fairly good sense. Okay, nice feature. As you're progressing through the game, one, you'll notice this gets sprawling. You've got, you're trying to keep your houses relatively close to your work areas. You don't want them too close because if you say I've got this, I got a beer brewery, if that gets too close to a house, they want to be close enough that they can go to work easily. But if they're too close, that's going to lower the value of your house and it's going to make people unhappy. You are looking at happiness, but once again, I've never had a problem with it. I'm always having job happiness be pretty good with these guys. The upgrade tree, you can get different modifying cards that give you a boost for a particular town or a particular resource, and you can build these later on in the game. So, fairly straightforward city playing game. Kind of has that real Anno feel to me. Yeah, I like it, but my main complaint is probably just the fact this early access. There's a lot of the game that just doesn't feel like it goes very far. The entire combat approach, which uses the influence points, which I kind of like a simplified combat idea, but I mean, I've never actually done anything. I can attack a player, but they just get crabby at me. I never had to worry about them attacking me. Now, maybe if I was building my city closer to them, that might become a little bit interesting. After a while, near the end of the game, I think a little bit too far towards the end of the game, you can start building colonies, in which case you basically just build a new city, and you can shuffle goods back and forth using a certain type of port. So, yeah, okay, that's interesting. Overall review. I like a lot of what they're doing. It's definitely interesting, but it really becomes overwhelming very quickly. I almost would like to see some kind of mechanic where you don't micromanage as much, because you still kind of have to micromanage. You're still going through doing upgrades to buildings. Like, I believe there's a bunch of these houses. I still have to upgrade some over here. And there's no good, easy way to say, okay, show me all the houses that I haven't upgraded yet. Like that one, I didn't put in a hearth. So it would be nice to have some kind of, easy way of seeing this. Like, I did not realize I had a whole bunch of houses over here that needed upgrading. Or maybe ones that would upgrade a little bit more automatically, especially later on. So I would love to see some mechanics that would really limit the micromanagement. And so you don't feel like you're trying to constantly tweak and adjust what you're doing, because it ends up being the point. It's like, okay, I need to modify my bakers. I don't remember how many bakeries I have. I've got a ton of them. I have no idea where they're at. So it gets a bit on the confusing side that way. And once again, I didn't know I had these houses needing upgraded. So this is not something I think is a great gameplay feature. It's good early game. It needs to fade away because once again, the game really does evolve as you play through it. And I'd like a few of these features to kind of evolve. And then additionally, kind of the next point is that, as I've said earlier, the AI, they say this right on the load screen. When you're loading the game, it says right up the bat, the AI is very primitive. And I totally get that. And it definitely is, because the computer players may as well not exist. There is no real need for them. They don't really serve a function. So there might be some areas I'm just not getting into, but I would expect a little bit of competition from them, kind of thing. A little bit of some kind of challenge that they're creating. So yeah, general overview of this. This has kind of got like an Anno meets Civilization feel to it. I like it. I'm happy with my purchase. I've spent way more than $1. I've spent enough hours that I've paid less than $1 an hour for it, which is always a nice metric. Indie games, I don't hold to that strictly. 5 great hours for $20 is more valuable than 50 mediocre hours. But it is nice when you do have a good bang for your buck. But yeah, it's definitely a bit unpolished. It's definitely a early access game. Oh, and the other thing I totally forgot to mention. Let me save the game and let me exit out. Nice splash screen they have here. There is multiplayer, and I have no idea who that is. But if you've got a friend with the game, you can play with them. You can have a server. I've got a friend that I'm doing this with. It's a nice feature, and I do like that, that it does have an actual co-op. Or I wouldn't say co-op. Basically, they control one city, you control another city. So once again, I'm not entirely sure what the gameplay element there is, other than we're both playing together, which, that's fine with me. It's a time to, call up, chat, see how each other's home repairs are going, etc. The joys of being an adult. But anyways, yeah, so recommendation, it's worth it. I like the game, but it's definitely needs some polish. It's definitely an early access. I look forward to seeing what it becomes in the future. So with that said, have a wonderful day. I will see you in later videos.